Hi, it's John Terry, the Black Belt Leader, and welcome to another Black Belt Leadership Master Your Life podcast. In this episode, we want to talk about modeling the leadership you want to see replicated in others. Because the last thing you want those you're leading asking you is, what do you call that? You know, when I think back to starting out as a multi-location school owner, everybody came to learn for their own reasons. I remember in the 4 and 5-year-old Little Dragons class, parents brought their kids to help them get rid of some of that excess energy that they had at the end of the day. Also to learn self-discipline, self-control, and the other important disciplinary aspects of the martial arts that help these kids focus and achieve a better outcome, not only in the school, but in the classroom and at home. We had other individuals that came to be a part of our program that came because they wanted to be a competitor. They wanted to travel to tournaments. They wanted to compete, and they loved the sport aspect of the martial arts. Others came because they wanted to learn self-defense. They envisioned themselves as the next Bruce Lee, the next Chuck Norris, the next Steven Seagal. You pick the martial arts superhero. That, in their mind, is who they wanted to be. Others came for the fitness and the wellness aspects of the martial arts. For us, it didn't matter why they came. We knew they came to learn. And because they came to learn, we had an obligation to teach them and to teach them well. And one of the things I learned early on and had an opportunity to share with the instructors that were helping teach in our school is the fact that our students modeled what they saw in us. If we demonstrated excellence in the way that we worked on our katas, our forms, our technique, we saw students model that same behavior. If we came in with a lackadaisical attitude and we kind of had a ho-hum, halfway work at it workout, our students modeled the very same behavior. What we put before our students in terms of a role model or a visual representation of what we expected is actually what we realized coming back to us from the effort put forth by our students. Yes, it's true that people do what people see. They model the behavior that they see in you as a leader. Yeah, and as we would teach technique in our classroom and we would teach all of the various aspects, watching the students perform, sometimes it was really, really good. Very crisp, very precise, lots of speed, lots of power, all of the aspects that we wanted to see in the martial arts in the lives of some of our students that really took what they were doing seriously. But for some of the other students that were there, that they're just to have fun or there for some aspect other than learning the martial arts for the sake of the martial arts, sometimes you had to just stop as they did a technique and they didn't do it well, and you had to look and say, well, what do you call that? That's not really a high block. That's not really a front punch. That's not an outside block. That's not a side kick. And then we would have to go back and correct what was wrong, improve, help them get better, and to work to become a better version of the martial artist they wanted to become. But the interesting thing that we observed in the martial arts, and it really carries over into every aspect of leading a team or an organization, is the thing that distinguished those who excelled from those who are average was how they trained. And how they trained was dictated by the model that they had set before them. If I and the other instructors in our school modeled excellence, we put forth a black belt excellent effort, we saw that in our students. You know, I remember one KG Frenchman we used to have that would come into our school, and he was one of our personal mentors, our overseers, and helped us as we progressed in our rank advancement. But when we would have a test, he would always come in a day early, and he would teach a class for us. And one of the things he would always tell the students is what he called the law of 100. And this is what he would say: you will perform in testing tomorrow to the level of your practice. So if you fail to give me 100% of yourself today, you can't give me more than 100% tomorrow when you're testing. It's physically impossible to give me more than 100%. So if you show up and you give me a half-cocked effort, you're wasting my time and yours in preparing for this exam. So I want you to get out on the floor, and I want you to make up your mind right now whether or not you're going to be wasting my time and yours and everybody else who showed up today to get ready for testing tomorrow. You know, the last thing you want to hear, you are training and you are performing technique or you are going through a testing, is to have your instructor panel look at you and say, John, what do you call that? That was not whatever technique it was that you were supposed to be performing. I remember when my youngest son was testing for his first degree black belt before the International Martial Arts Council's Grandmasters Council. It was a big deal. There were 9 high-ranking black belts on the panel. He was a young teenager, and one of the techniques that he performed in the midst of one of his katas, one of the forms that he demonstrated, had a move in it one of the instructors didn't recognize. And they called him out on that in the middle of testing. Now, there are probably 50 to 100 people in the audience watching my son test. And I didn't want to test my own son for that reason. I wanted individuals outside of me to say whether or not he was ready to become a black belt. And when they asked him, Joshua, what do you call that? And he paused and he explained why he did that particular element the way he did in the martial arts. Bill Wallace, known as Superfoot, one of the most amazing martial artists that we've had an opportunity to know and to work with. Bill is a friend, but he is also the undefeated middleweight world PKA champion in sparring. He began to make a comment to the group that he said, I've never seen that particular technique done, and I've never seen it done that way. But that's the unique distinction of the martial arts. And he went on to explain why he thought the element was valid. And although my son had inserted that in as an element because he saw it essential, others didn't. But think about the times you've gone to do something and totally messed it up, and somebody looked at it and said, is that the way that's supposed to be done? That's essentially what we're talking about here. If you are leading a team every day, understand that every day that you are going through personal growth and development, you are going through professional growth and development, what are you doing? You're getting ready for game day. You're getting ready for that point in time when it's going to be your opportunity to walk out onto the field and lead. Whether you're playing first base or shortstop, catcher or outfield, you're getting ready for game day every single day. Those that you are leading are watching how you perform. When it is your turn to lead, when it's your turn to get up to bat, it's your turn to go out in the field, whatever it is that you're preparing for, every day you've got to have a mindset, I'm preparing for the big leagues. If you're okay with being in the minors and you're okay with that mindset and that work ethic, you're only going to create individuals on your team that can rise to play in the minor leagues. If you want those on your team to be able to make it to the big leagues, to be able to go to the World Series, to be able to compete in a national championship, then you've got to get yourself ready, because people do what people see. We've always heard that practice makes perfect. What practice does is practice perfects how we practice. If we practice at a subpar level and we do that over and over again, that practice only reinforces lesser than what we could have been. If we are not willing to put forth a world-class black belt effort, and we're willing to accept the little mistakes and accept the status quo, those we're leading will do the same thing. It's essentially the law of the lid. Practice makes perfect. And if you want perfect practice, then perfect practice makes for a perfect performance. You know, I heard it said that to present a spectacular performance requires hours and hours of unspectacular preparation. So every time you have the opportunity to practice, you've got an opportunity to examine what you're doing. Identify what's working well you need to keep doing more of. Identify what you're doing okay that you need to improve on, and also identify what you're doing poorly that you either need to fix or get rid of or replace with a better habit. The goal in all of this is what Bruce Lee referred to as thinking without thinking. In the martial arts, we refer to it as the concept of Mushin. In my book, Black Belt Leadership 101, I talk about the concept of Mushin as one of the important leadership characteristics that you learn to live out in your life. It's essentially thinking without thinking. You train so that when the opportunity comes and you're called up for game day and you walk out onto that big league stage, you don't have to think, what would a world-class performer say? Or what would a world-class performer do? What would a black belt do in this situation? What would a black belt say in this situation? Because you have trained yourself to be a black belt leader, and it becomes a part of who you are. You don't have to think of what you're going to do. You just do, because it's who you are. And the essence of what you have become through your training begins to come out. And as you model that behavior before others, they begin to mirror that behavior in their own lives. This is when high performance teams really become those world-class record-setting teams that increase results at an exponential level. You know, whether we're talking NFL, NBA, Olympics, whatever it is, world-class performers go through this process. They think into the possibilities that they could face, all of the what-ifs that they may run into, and they work through in their mind how they're going to respond to those. So when it's game day and Tom Brady is under the center and he takes a snap and the defensive line breaks through and begins to pursue him, Tom already has a plan in place. He doesn't have to think, he performs. When LeBron James gets the ball and he drives down the court and there's a 7'5" center standing in the way of his ability to drive in for a layup, he already knows in advance how he's going to adapt and how he's going to change and move to make a difference. When Michael Phelps got into the water, Michael Phelps had a plan. He didn't have to think, he just did. You pick the sport. World-class performers understand the concept of Mushin. They model that behavior for the others that are a part of their team so that they too can rise to that world-class status. This is what your teammates, those that are following you, are looking for in their lives, the opportunity to model the world-class performance of leadership they see in you. You know, John refers to this as the law of the lid. One of my mentors is John Maxwell, and in the 21 Laws of Leadership, he says, your leadership ability is the lid that determines your level of effectiveness. The lower your ability to lead yourself and others, the lower the lid on your potential to achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve. Every day, you're getting ready for game day. And every day, you're getting your team, those you are leading, ready for game day. Now, your team might be your children. It might be the individuals in your organization you're leading. It might be a company or a Fortune 500 massive organization that you're leading. But every day, the measure of success that you're going to see is based upon the preparation that you've done up to that point. You've got to make sure you've got yourself ready for game day so that you can model the behavior you want your team doing as they too get ready for game day. You know, and if you're still having to think about what you're going to do, you haven't mastered that quality in your life. If you're having to think, how should a leader lead? You haven't mastered leadership. If you're thinking, what should I say? You haven't mastered communication. If you're thinking, what should my mindset be before I go into this situation? You haven't mastered your mindset. If your emotions are running wild and getting the better of you as the stresses of life come down, you haven't mastered your emotions. You know, Mark Hoplamazian, who's the CEO of Hyatt Hotels, really said it best. He said, people do what people see. And I love this quote. He said, if there's anything I've learned in my 27 years in the service industry, it's this. 99% of all employees want to do a good job, but how they perform is simply a reflection of the one for whom they work. Think about that last statement. How your team performs is simply a reflection of you and the work ethic that you model before them. So when those that you're leading see you, what do they see? Do they see a black belt leader in life modeling black belt excellence? Or do they see somebody that's content with an orange belt or a green belt or a brown belt experience that they're going to put forth into the marketplace? The last thing you want is for those you're leading, as they look at your leadership, to say, what do you call that? Is that the leadership you want us to model? Is that the level of communication you want us to engage in? Is that the mindset that you want us to adopt and live out? Your leadership that you model is so, so important because people do what people see. And if you're not modeling the behavior of excellence that you want in others, you're going to stifle their ability to rise to the occasion. And when you do that, you're no longer leading. I love what John Maxwell says. It's one of my favorite quotes of John's, and I hear him say it often. If you think you're leading and no one is following, you're only taking a walk. Now think about that. If you think you're leading and you have no followers, you're not leading. What the team you're leading is looking for and what they are expecting from you, what they want at the end of the day is they want to see you as a black belt leader. They want to see you modeling black belt excellence in your life. And as we wrap this session up, remember this: how your team performs is a reflection of your leadership or the lack thereof. Hey, thanks for joining me for this particular episode of Black Belt Leadership, Master Your Life. To learn more about Black Belt Leadership, you can visit us at beablackbeltleader.com. There you'll find information on our personal growth, our group coaching, our executive coaching programs, as well as our professional development, organizational training, and the ability to invite us in for a seminar or a conference. I'm John Terry, the Black Belt Leader. Thanks for joining me, and have a great day.